Welcome in for another episode of the Inside Bassmaster Podcast, episode 87. And myself and Kyle Jessie, we're kind of in diagonal screens this week, Kyle. We're not side by side because we have two special guests, and that would be Chris Bowes, senior tournament director over everything bass fishing, and Hank Weldon, former college series director for a long time, one of the pioneers of that, and now stepped up to the Opens level this season. And Hank, Chris, we appreciate you guys coming on because the hot news in bass fishing, we dropped this bomb right before the St. Lawrence River, and we made up for it with a lot of great smallmouth catches, but some changes coming to the St. Croix Bassmaster Opens, and that's always a big talking point because that is the funnel to get to the Elite Series. And so first off, thank you guys for joining us. And Kyle, how excited are you to talk about this? Because there's been a lot of questions on social media, and we'll get a lot of answers in this episode.
I'm super excited. So granted, in my opinion, you would have a hard time getting more high profile guests than we have right now, because this is obviously one of the hottest topics in the sport overall. I know that these guys are, obviously willing to clear some things up, talk about it a little bit, maybe answer some questions that people have. And I'm excited to hear more about it from them myself, because I've been off doing different things. So I haven't got to talk to Hank or Chris, either one, about this. So I'm excited for it.
Well, Chris, you're the senior, no offense to all of us here in the four box. You're the eldest member here, and you've been a Bassmaster the longest.
I'm old. That's what you're saying. Thanks, Ronnie.
You've seen it from the beginning, when the Opens were even founded when the Elites were founded, the Opens were founded to join into the Elites. So you've seen a lot of changes over the years. And these decisions that are made at the top level aren't taken lightly. They're not made in a night or a week. They're made over months and months. So can you speak to that a little bit about the changes that you've seen and how much goes into each adjustment, whether it's rules or format?
Right. Yeah, no, I started in 2004. So that was before the inception of even the Elite Series at all. So, under, I guess, my direction, the Bassmaster Opens, has essentially, with a few exceptions of Bass Nation guys and obviously some that came over back in 2020. I've seen every qualification from the Opens to the Elite Series, and obviously Hank is going to start to see that this year. But it's been it's changed over time. It's gone from 3 series in the Opens to 3 series with 3 events, and then actually I forget the year we did 2 series with 5 events. So you had to fish 5 events to qualify. I think that year we did have a drop too. So we had a lot of different crazy. We kind of settled back. When we implemented that, it was also a little bit tough economic times. So we weren't really filling the fields. Obviously, we went back to, I think we had 2 series with 4 events just a couple of years ago. We really settled back on the 3 and 3, because that's just a formula that's really worked well and, fills the field. But one of the things, and Hank can talk more about it, but we were getting a lot of pushback from anglers, not only current elite anglers, but aspiring elite anglers, that we needed to have a more proven process and track record for anglers to qualify for the elites. And so a couple of years ago, as you know, Ronnie, Kyle, and Hank, obviously, we implemented the overall standings as another, we'll call it, pillar to qualify for the Elite Series. And as we saw that evolve, and this has been going on for a couple of years, we've been having these discussions that do we need to move to a direction where the whole qualifiers, all the qualifiers out of the Opens come from that AOY. And obviously, we thought right now is the right time to pull the trigger on that.
And Hank, you've seen something a little bit similar when it comes to the college series. We've seen great regionals where I could only fish the certain one for my area, and Kyle could only fish the certain one for the Arkansas region. And then it went to, you can fish whichever divisions you want. And then now it's gotten so cluttered and so many applicants to even get into tournaments. You got to fish them all if you want to be team of the year, if you want to get any stature. So we've seen that in the college series as well, take a step up. And now you're kind of embracing the Opens as your first year doing that as the tournament director. And then going forward, you'll be, the pioneer of any adjustments that might come from this overall race, and still awarding classic spots to the individual winners and still showing value for those 3 events in each division versus just only favoring the 9 events? There's still a lot of positives to be had that you can explain.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. And then just the evolution of college, but also high school too, and just kind of, it's a fluid, they're fluid platforms. And it's like with anything you see out there in sports, you always see some minor changes, sometimes major changes, but no, that's exactly right. And again, the key to it, and I think Bowes hit on this, but I'm going to say it again. The key to it is we want to prepare that angler, not only from a competition standpoint, but from a financial expectation, which you can't do that 100%, but an idea of, okay, we're going all over the country. This is where I have to put all my resources to a sponsor commitment. You go to a sponsor, be like, I'm entered into the I've got 9 events I am planning on fishing. I'm not just gonna throw my hat in the ring for 3 events, which is still very hard and very congratulatory accolade if you can qualify for the elites right now in the top 3 in a division out of 225. Not easy to do, but we also want to set that angler up for success and not for failure. And there are several success stories from anglers making it to the elites through one division, but there are a lot of not success stories where an angler has not, I don't want to say they weren't ready, but I don't know if the expectations were there on what actually happened once they got to the Elite Series. So that's really the main driving force behind this, is preparing that new angler. And I'll apologize to the elite anglers. I said this on the college series, because once we got a diversified anglers starting to get better. Look at the angler of the rookie of the year right now, Jacob Fouts and Cody Huff. I mean, through the college series, they're right there. They were in the top 5 at Pickwick and St. Lawrence. So I'll apologize to the current elite anglers for preparing the new crop of anglers even more and elevating the competition as we progress through the next few years.
No, 100% what Hank's saying, and we owe that to the elite anglers. If I'm going to be displaced, I should be displaced by an angler that is competing, maybe not financially at the same level I am, but as far as travel, days on the water, diversity of fisheries. If I'm going to get displaced, I want to be displaced by that individual, not the individual that's fished three events within 300 miles of the house, and has a vast experience on those fisheries and things of that nature. Also, another byproduct of this is it allows the angler that really is all in, which you need to be. I mean, any elite angler will tell you, or former elite, you got to be all in on this deal. You can't be just testing the waters, because when you get in, it's a full commitment. But this does allow for a little room of error, for error that you don't have if you're fishing just 3 events. You can have that sub 100 performance and still rebound with 9 events. You have a sub 50 performance in a 3 event qualification system with only 3 going, you're done. You have one bad day, and some people have said you have one bad hour. That could be your season right there.
That could be your car breaking down on the way to take off,
Right.
Right.
So Hank, we'll stay with you here for a second, because I'm sure you've had to, see a lot of this up front. And then Chris, you can obviously piggyback off what he said. But, when the announcement was made, there was obviously a lot of reactions, just like anything with, any announcement really in bass fishing. But it seems like the guys that understand it and that have been asking for it had such a positive outlook on this. Kind of talk about that a little bit and what you've heard from some of our anglers that, were asking for this.
Yeah. So like you said, mixed review. And I want to say we hear everybody, and we try to do our best to accommodate every angler in their phase of their life. Right. And, we've got a great Bass Nation program in existence right now that Patty Long, look at him. He qualified through the Bass Nations, having a pretty good elite run. But no, you're right. But what I did hear there, Kyle, is a lot of positive that you might have not seen reflected on social media. I think they just wanted to stay away from that. But, that is in favor of this, have been in favor of this for a long time. I was actually surprised at some of the anglers I heard heard from that said, good call. And, there's a lot still up for grabs in the divisions. You can still punch your ticket to the Classic, which is every dream, to make it there. And that's still in effect. The major change is just, you got to fish all 9 to make it to the elites. That is the pretty much on the surface 30,000 foot view of that. There's going to be a lot behind that with our coverages and elevation on bassmaster.com and recognition of what we're going to dub the EQ angler. But there's on the surface, that's what it is. You want to get to the elites through the opens, you got to fish all 9.
And I'll say, it almost seems like we created a second tournament trail at the semi-pro level without creating a second trail, because now you can take an angler that's 18 years old and doesn't want to fish in college and they want to go into the opens. They can go dabble and get their feet wet in an opens division. If they do find success, and they could say, well, I would have qualified if they still had it the old way. Well, if you're going to be in the top 10 in points, you've probably made $30,000-$40,000 possibly. Yes, counterbalancing your entry fees. Or if you win one, you're going to win 50 grand and go to the Classic. Right. You're going to have seed money now to where you don't need paid time off to go and maybe make that next jump to 9 events. Or you now have the money to be able to maybe, work part-time and pursue it fully. And Chris, you can speak to that, is that now we've got another stepping stone level with the carrot of the Classic still there, and the elite qualification. It's one of those things that we've seen guys qualify in a division and say no, and 3 years later qualify and then say yes. And they're like, I'm glad I waited. And some of these guys will be able to do it without the pressures of, I just qualified and I better say yes now, because now it's not an option. They're going to have to move up.
That is one of the evolutions I've seen back in the first, I'd say 5 to 10 years of the Elite Series. We'd often work down points list. 10 was pretty common, 15. I think there were years we went down into the 20s to get the 5. I think at those particular times we were taking 5 per.
Yeah, 15 total.
Because we had a larger Elite Series field size. And, so we were working down, and that was pretty consistent until about the last 5 years, where essentially there has been little to no, I'm not sure we've had a refusal in like the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So I do think that the thought process of the anglers where I can wait, like Randall Tharp, for example, from years ago, actually qualified 1 year, didn't take it because he didn't feel like he was ready, and then qualified again, and
wins an elite very, very quickly.
Tournaments that he only finished 2 of the 3 tournaments that year too. So that's pretty scary. I used to tell anglers, and if just because you get it that first time, maybe wait and see. Maybe wait and see if you qualify again, or if maybe you have a top 10 year and you don't qualify, but then you do qualify, you probably can say, I got some consistency, I'm ready to roll. But I'm always a little cautious of those guys that consistently finish outside that top 20-ish in a series for 4 or 5 years, and then they kind of strike gold, I guess, and hit it, and you're kind of like, ooh, I don't know if that's ready. And I've seen some of those guys really struggle, and that's unfortunate. So used to say wait, now you can't really wait, but I think using this 9 event format, when you do qualify, the ones that are going to come, we know we're going to have a super solid field. We may not have the giant fields sizes we have now, but those EQ anglers, there's going to be some studs, and those 9 that qualify, look out. As Hank said earlier, I apologize, Elite Series anglers. I know you want careful what you wish for sometimes, I guess. But
that's right.
They're gonna be hammers, and we're getting really good feedback from the industry. The initial, anytime any kind of controversial announcement is made, usually it's the people that don't like it that pile on first. They're usually the first ones, and then you get kind of the more tempered and more
whispers,
experienced and understanding, and kind of give their opinions on it, and then that kind of like makes some of those guys that initially jump to the keyboard say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense when I stop and think about it. So
Kyle, you've kind of replaced me in terms of covering the college series and covering the opens. Now that I'm too old and I stay at home, I don't go on the road as much. And you're the rodeo cowboy on the road. You've obviously noticed as well that maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we did the overalls, we had 25 anglers. Not even before the overall, I think it was we just noticed that 25 anglers signed up to fish all 3 divisions, all, 9 events. Then we implement it and it goes to 45 or 50. Then it goes up to 65. And now this year it's around 80, I believe. And
83.
So 83. And that's with the well intentions of fishing all of them. Things will happen. They may fish 8 out of 9. So someone might statistically say, well, they didn't fish all of them. Well, they had the intentions of doing so. So Kyle, you've seen that where you see some of these familiar names, not only in the Eastern points or the Southern points, or the Northern points or the Centrals, you'll see them at the top of the overall and each division because they're putting their chips, I guess, where their mouth is, and they want to make this a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've talked about so much, and I don't think it can be overstated, is, how important consistency is, right? So not just in the opens, but when you get to the Elite Series level, obviously you're going to have to be consistent just to hang around. So, being able to fish all 9, I think is such a big advantage for the qualification standpoint. And, one thing I was kind of waiting to hit on, I don't talk to the anglers obviously nearly as much as you guys do in certain aspects, but I talked to a couple guys last year that are, roughly my age, even younger, that were basically a day away from qualifying through a division, but weren't prepared to take that step. And like Chris mentioned a minute ago, I think that happens more than maybe people realize. I guess you guys can piggyback off that a little bit, because I think that there are circumstances that happen pretty much all across the board. So you could sit there and play that game all day long. But no, I think that, if you're signed up all 9, you're already expecting, what you have to do at the end of the road.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I know exactly the guy you're talking about there, Kyle. And I remember texting or having you on the phone and I said, man, I love the kid, but I don't want him to qualify then if he's not going to accept it, because that's going to take a spot. We don't work down anymore. If someone says no, it's a no. We don't work down. So I was like, if he's not planning on doing it with his full heart of hearts, one day away from possibly doing it, might be good for him to have a tough day and learn from those mistakes and then be able to approach it another time this year, which we're seeing him do this season. And we don't have to get specifically into who that is, but you guys know that there are success stories from each division. And there's success stories from people overall. But like Kyle just mentioned, I often say to be an Elite Series pro and be successful, every one of them can win an event or get a top 10. That they have the skill level to do so. But the skill in the Elite Series to last for decades is to make sure your lowest finish isn't in the bottom 15 of a tournament. You can't finish 75th to 90th and expect to be consistently doing well. So those who avoid those bombs are the ones that last for a long time. And it's the same thing in the opens. If you have one bad day in a 9 tournament stretch in the opens, you're going to be below the top 10 and not even have a shot to qualify anyways.
Yeah, no, it's been evolving going this direction for a few years. And, I was kind of surprised that everyone was so shocked and surprised that we did do this. But again, it's kind of set. I think, what's the two, Pangrak and that group, they have that newsletter, Best on Tour. Sorry,
yeah.
Escaped me for a minute. And they did a survey and they had 4 about, what people thought, good or bad. And obviously that kind of is geared towards people that are a little bit more ingrained in the industry and chasing the dream. And they had 400 anglers respond, and 70% of them said thumbs up, good job, that's the way they needed to go. Mm-hmm. So I was just telling my wife a minute ago, I was talking about that number and kind of what we were going to talk about. I said, dude, if you can get 70% of anglers to agree with you, that's like 90 in the rest of the world, right?
Yep.
That's like the angler years, like dog years, angler boats.
So Hank, some changes that'll be coming. Obviously, if you're just tuning into the podcast and you've kind of figured out what we're talking about, the Bassmaster Opens has went from qualifying from 3 events in a division to make the Elite Series to now you have to fish all 9 for 2023 and possibly beyond. You have to fish all 9 events to be in the running for the overall. Obviously, if somebody does well enough like a Rendell Tharp that one year, they could probably miss an event and still maybe qualify, but you've got to fish the full slate of tournaments to try to be eligible to do that. Classic bids, for anyone confused, are still up for grabs for each person in a division. You have to just fish the 3 events of that specific division and win one of those tournaments. But Hank, one big question a lot of people have asked as a follow-up. They don't like this cough medicine. They don't like the way it tastes, this reality. But now that they've kind of had to swallow it and they've had to like understand what it's about, what's the added benefits of it? Will we see different payout structures, whether it's a points race payout or tournaments maybe go down farther? What are the maybe possibilities coming with that? And also, other kind of benefits coverage wise with Bassmaster, because everyone wants to be live. They want their success story to be live. And so is there any talks of that we can't announce before ICAST, but we can announce maybe after, this fall?
Right. So not going to be able to lock down on anything of those lines, but yeah, we had a very successful ICAST that will hopefully lead to a lot of other things. I think I kind of teased this on another podcast. I hope the anglers are going to like the schedule. It'll be coming out,
I do.
For the elite, but going to a lot of places. They're not going to be quite as regionally based as they have been before. And, that's going to be by design to diversify those East divisions. So that's going to be good too. Yeah, we heard that loud and clear, and I'm an angler myself, and I like as much of a payout as anybody else. So, we're going to the drawing board there and hopefully going to get that, a little bit better for some anglers. But a lot of that's going to be very similar. We may increase the field size. We're looking at that too. Float that out there. Just don't know where the economy is going to take it. We may only have 20 anglers sign up for the Opens next year. I think that's going to happen, but we hopefully we'll be able to extend the field size a little bit with the fisheries that we're going to. And then the last thing I think you asked about .com coverage. Yeah, there's going to be elevated coverage. There's going to be more focus on the Opens, just out of this new inventory that we've created with the EQ series, which again is that overall AOI. So you're going to, as an angler in that, and when they're pitching to their sponsors, they're going to, it's all going to be performance based, like anything. You do well, you're going to be talked about, and you're going to be put on Bassmaster.com and recognized as an EQ angler. So, I think certain anglers will certainly benefit from the additional EQ coverage that we're going to do.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Hank alluded to, build these anglers being able to build their sponsorships and
name recognition
events and they'll be able to, our hopes are even evolve those sponsorships as the season progresses and they start to eye that dream of qualifying for the Elite Series. So you get, down to those last 2 or 3 fall events. You're sitting inside the top 5 in points, you're pretty good bombing. It's not that way with the 3 events. There's really a lot of unknown until the last day of the season, which is now, October 25th, and your deposit is due November 13th.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing those dates out there, but
no, the biggest day is going to be the final fulfilled day of that final Open, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a major focus day, because that's when I think the EQ is it's all going to come down to that, because you may not have EQ anglers moving on as the top 10 for that final day.
But gaining 50 points or something. Yeah.
Day 2 of event number 9 will be a major day in bass fishing next year.
Well, you saw that, Chris. We talked about the Southern Opens. I had Josh Douglas burning up my cell data on day 2 because the leader of the tournament was Blake Smith, and he was inside the qualification for the Elite Series. He had an inconceivably tough day, didn't even catch a limit at Norman, which there's millions of small fish, at times that you could just fill a limit with. Struggled. People were shocked at that. Drops just down, and Josh Douglas makes it in by like a point because he made the final day. And I said, you can't even drop far. If you finish 10th, you still made it. Oh, yeah. So people are sweating it out, and they don't know if they can say yes to an elite invite because it's only going to be a point or so difference,
Yeah, and how the sponsors are they're great, but they're going to be a little bit hesitant to sponsor someone until they got that tour card in hand. I mean, if they got, bird in hand over here versus a guy, I'm looking really good, they're gonna go with that guarantee. So again, they may not be guaranteed until, as Hank said, the second day of the final event. We'll have a pretty good. There may be, hopefully we maybe do have that one more dramatic position shift that could happen. I mean, that's obviously good for our business and good for, we're a media company as well. So, we want that kind of excitement, and we're sports fans. I mean, any sport, wants to have that last second 3-pointer or home run,
play-in tournament right before the playoffs. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So there's, that's a great thing, but a lot of stuff will be really starting to be sorted out of who those last, 20 players are for those nine spots. And they can start to leverage that with sponsors.
That's what I was just about to say, Kyle. We think about those guys that even maybe they're 7th and in the final event drop out and finish 10th and they miss it by a spot. They could already have those conversations that, hey, if I make the Elite Series, I'm going to fish a 9 tournament season next year as well. Or if I barely miss it, you can count on me to be here for 9 more opens. And it's a lot more exposure than 3 opens. And you hope that the schedule turns out in your favor or whatever. And Kyle, it's a mini Elite Series with twice the field size. So it's weird to say but it's the simulation of the Elite.
Half the entry fee.
Yeah, and half the entry fee. But it is one of those deals that it kind of simulates that, which gives stability to some of the elite guys wanting to go back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, Chris brought up a point that I was actually just about to bring up is as a fan of the sport, which is what I started at, and all of you guys, I imagine, started at, was, like you said, there's going to be some giant names in the EQ field. I mean, it's going to be basically another thing to grab a fan's attention, which is what I'm looking forward to from the content standpoint. But, just to ask about that, obviously, I think there was a lot of Elite Series anglers that were, requesting that. Just talk about the advantages to have this fallback to where, like you said, it's not like you get, I hate to even ask this question because everybody hates to talk about Elite Series guys getting, kicked out of the elites, but it's a perfect place for those guys to go and be able to make it back quickly without having to, scramble for maintaining sponsors and things like that as well.
No, I mean, you're right. You think about the elites, it's the top 9 from years over years over years over years. And we've got the unknown of who are those top 9 out of the 225. So, one would assume that the competition's not as tough, even though it's more anglers. But some argue that it's the toughest fields in bass fishing. But no, I mean, where I'm going with that is with the elites, though, we know those are 90 hammers, that are out there that will kick your teeth in at any given point, no matter what. And if you can compete against them and still get cut, I still think that's something to say when you can compete against them and you already have a good expectation and a leg up on those 225 that you're going to drop back and fish against. And that's my view of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, let's just, for argument's sake, say we end up with like 125 anglers, which I think is I think between 100 and 150 is probably the realistic number for fishing all 9. Obviously economy is going to influence that. If gas continues to go down, that's obviously good for our business. If it goes up and turns it back around, that's obviously bad. So there's little things out of our control like that. But it's, as an angler that does fall out of the elites and wants to get back in because they really believe, like I do, that that's the best platform in bass fishing, it's a lot more realistic to go compete against 125 guys for 9 spots than it is to go compete against 225, for 3 spots. Granted, you have 3 chances to do that, but it's just I think it's in talking to the pros that that aspire to get in the Elite Series, they just think this is a way more realistic. It's not that it's easier at all, because it's more investment, more travel, more uncertainties with the fisheries you're fishing. So I don't want to portray as easy by any means, but it's more realistic. There's less of a luck factor.
Yeah, I got a couple more things here before we let you guys go, but I tried to explain it to some people and to use like an analogy, because I love analogies and metaphors and things like that. But it's like the supply is the number of Elite Series qualification spots that the Opens have. That's the supply. When we talk about supply and demand, that's the number. But over the last few years, the demand has gone up. The fact that we have a 225 person field, and we could have a 225 person field that was on the waiting list. Like, we had another whole field of anglers on the waiting list that could have had a 2 open series if it was totally separate. So our supply remained the same number of spots, yet the demand doubled. It kind of makes me think about 2020 when everyone was trying to get toilet paper. That toilet paper either they had to put a restriction on it or they had to up the price on it. And so that's what I thought about with the opens. Instead of upping the entry fee cost and weeding out those who could afford a small amount but can't afford a big amount, instead of weeding it out price wise, you weed it out by hoops that they have to jump through. Now they have to be even more committed. If you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to get that toilet paper, you're going to have to really want that toilet paper going in there, because you're going to have to go through certain things to get it. So it's, for me, it's kind of thinking about the opens like that. The supply has stayed the same, the number of spots, but over the last few years, the demand has gotten up so much that we either have to double the tournaments and have 6 opens divisions, or you got to make it a little harder to get through that gate to see who really wants it and who's really prepared for it. Not once everybody wants it, but who's really prepared for it. Can you guys speak to that? Because that is kind of the only way I've seen it with kind of how the demand of the opens field.
Yeah, Hank, I mean, we literally had these, these two different, we were in a fork in the road, and you really described, it's almost like you were in the room with us, Ronnie, because we talked about, do we elevate it in terms of keeping it the same, but bringing, still probably pushing towards an overall, the qualifiers coming from the overall, but do we, try to make this a more professional league, which, in a lot of people's minds, that means more money. So, to make it more money pay out, that means more money's got to come in. So we talked about, that as an option, and that, some people might not be able to play at a higher level, but is that necessarily a problem where, to your point, you got all this demand? But we kind of shelved that and decided, let's focus, especially as the economy was turning, let's focus less on making it more expensive from an entry fee standpoint, and focus on what's best for the league and building, the best league, major league in tournament in the bass fishing tournament industry. And we felt, let's focus our attention on, these 9 events, and that being the way to qualify. Hank, you can speak more.
Well, I was going to say the one thing, and I think I said this earlier, I felt like, and Bowes, you alluded to it too, that these discussions have been ongoing for a while, way before I was here, but we really dived down into it. But the one word that I always got out of this was responsible. Use that word a lot. And that, again, I just go back to, this is the responsible move of us, even though it's a business decision, and we are a business. It is a responsible move for the angler, because it eliminates, like I said, there are success stories, but it eliminates that, what Bowes, you talked about earlier, maybe ready, but we don't know. It eliminates the maybe. It cuts, I would say it's 99.99% sure that angler is ready to go at this point. If they have a year like they just had, ready to move into the Elite Series, and it just cuts out that maybe factor of, they may make it, they may not. We're still gonna see that. You're gonna see some anglers that don't have a good year and get cut out. But I feel like this is from a preparation standpoint and a preparatory league, this is the move that was needed to be made. I think I told somebody else, I've lost a lot of sleep on decisions that have been made, from scheduling to rule changes and stuff. This decision, I really didn't lose much sleep at all, because this is the core task of qualifying anglers to the Elite Series, which is what this decision was made to answer. This is the right call for it.
I like to.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Chris.
Piggybacking on what Hank said a little bit, one of the things we pride ourselves, and really all of our different tournament offerings, is we try to keep a lot of it very consistent, from the takeoff process to the the weigh-ins and how the scales are. So I like to say the only difference between a high school event and an elite event is Mercer's there, and there's a lot more banners. That's really the only difference.
But Hank, Weldon, and Chris Bowes are there for the open. What are you talking about?
Well, of course that. But one thing that we couldn't keep consistent was, an angler now has to go from fishing 3 events to 9 events. So we've even further bridged that gap, where they're prepared. That's one last thing that they got to be like, oh my gosh, last year I fished 3 events, I had a great year, I qualified, now I got to do 9. Now they're like, I did 9 last year, did great, now I'm going to do 9 again. It's very just makes a lot of sense that way too.
Mhm.
I like to think about it as the one thing I hate about college basketball. You got two halves. Who the heck plays two halves and translates to 4 quarters for the pro level of it? Why is it different?
Right.
Why,
Yeah.
why are we
No,
doing
exactly.
40 minutes versus 48? Why don't we do very simulated things? In high school, you got quarters. And I said it to somebody today. I was like, man, I absolutely love if the NBA called, Bassmaster would have to really, keep me if the NBA for some reason called. I love basketball.
I know you do.
I played basketball in high school. I'm 6'1". I'm not Muggsy Bogues over here, really short or anything. I'm a decent size. I love to play basketball, but I'm not beating down the NBA's door for destroying my dream because I didn't get to go to college and play it or in the NBA. That's just the NBA was created, but that doesn't mean everyone who loves basketball gets to play in it. The Elite Series was created, but that doesn't mean that everyone who loves to bass fish and even is good at it gets to do it. So, Hank, can you explain or your thoughts on when people say you're taking the dream away from people?
Yeah.
No, I think we're honestly making the dream just as hard to achieve as it is to keep your dream and stay on the elites. It's now equal on the hardness to get there and the hardness to stay there.
It's almost like we're managing expectations. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be a professional golfer. That would be awesome, but I'm not going to do it. So tournaments instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, we've got a great, and I said this earlier, and I want to make sure that the people who are not pleased with this hear this. The blue collar angler is how I'll classify it.
Because we're all working men.
Yep, the blue collar angler. We'll keep it gender neutral. There is a model for you to get to the classic, to maybe make it to the elites, and that's right now within the Bass Nation. You can fish state, locally, everything. Now, that's not to say we haven't gone to the drawing board behind the scenes, and you may see a little bit of foreshadowing here, maybe some changes coming out. Not going to be instant, but this EQ is going to open up some potentially other opportunities that may be designed for that blue collar angler. But as it stands right now, there is a platform that exists. And if you can't get in touch with your state nation guy, you let us know, and we'll make sure that we get you in touch with them so we can get you fishing on that local level, because you can make it to the classic that way and to the Opens if you place high enough, and to the Elite Series should you get up there. There's only one spot, but we've seen those nation champions do it before. People have heard of Caleb Summerall, Michael Iaconelli, Brandon Paul, Matty Wong. Pat Schlapp,
Paul Mueller.
Those are all nation champions that punched their ticket that way.
Chris, can you explain the nation aspect of it? I haven't ever fished a Bass Nation event. I fished the college series and I had to be a nation member. But for people who are like, well, how do I be a part of the Bass Nation? Do I just fish a club? What does your local club need to do to get you to out of the state, to the region, that kind of thing? If you know off the top, both of y'all can.
A Salt City Bassmaster you're talking about.
Yeah. So I grew up kind of in the nation program in upstate New York. Salt City Bassmaster, still really active club. Matter of fact,
speaking of those Onondaga weights, oh my
God, they had a Wednesday night,
22 pounds. Yeah.
And I actually I'm kind of proud. That was like one of my first things I did when I was tournament director. I said, we can't just go fishing once a month on a Saturday. We got to do something. Because upstate New York, the fishing season is like 3 weeks, right? So
it's great, but it is short.
I implemented the Onondaga Wednesday nighters. Most of the people live there. It's a small lake, as people are familiar with it. It's not very big, but it was one time the most polluted lake in the country. And they've done a lot of work, and it's a really great story, and it's not perfect. But they had 10 pounds over 20 pounds, and that's a 3-hour tournament. It's
did you get the sub sandwiches though for fourth place? Did you get the sub sandwiches?
Yeah, Golub and his son got the sub sandwiches. So good for them. I mean, they're I'm just joking. Rain is a heck of an angler.
Oh yeah.
So is
Ken's not too bad. He might be a better photographer, but
he's a great angler. Ken and I actually went to high school together. Probably a lot of people don't know that. And somehow
nice.
Ended up in the industry.
You just dated Ken a lot older than I thought he was.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
So
back to the nation, Salt City.
Back to the nation. I mean, each state, basically all the states. I mean, there's a few exceptions, right, Hank? North Dakota and Alaska.
North Dakota, right?
Several countries. The obvious: Japan, Canada, Italy. I'm forgetting a few others.
South Africa, Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Have Bass Nation programs. They feed into the national championship, and there's opportunities to go on the Bass website. Just click on the tournaments and Nation tab, and you find the club presidents. There's also links to clubs. I'm sorry, the websites which have links to clubs, and
they're already affiliated. You don't have to.
Most of them you don't have to necessarily be affiliated with a club. They have in New York, they had none. It was called, that was a club, none, which means essentially you weren't really in a club, but you were paying the dues and whatnot. And most of them have some format like that. But I would encourage. I love it. I still follow it, as you knew. I saw those results last night, and I still have a lot of great friends in the nation. And obviously through my travels at Bass, I deal with a lot of the nation presidents and conservation directors, of course, helping us with our fish care. We can't do it without those guys a lot of times, and obviously the youth directors and Hank dealt with them for years, and we still continue to, because the young anglers, the student athlete anglers, are really some of our best volunteers at events, and we see a lot of them, even at the Bassmaster Elite Series. They're not fishing, but they're just around the event, which is fantastic to see. So I recommend that people get involved, and not to dismiss it. And Hank kind of teased it out there. We are looking. That's kind of our next step. Obviously we got to get this, fully implemented and roll out, as you mentioned earlier, the payouts and kind of formatting. I don't think we'll see gigantic changes there. We hope to see some, but I wouldn't, if I was an angler, listening to this, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of change there. As we kind of let this kind of simmer down and get in place. I think that's the next area we need to look at, and it's for those guys and girls that are the working class or feel that they've been left behind a little bit. And we've talked to a senior management team at Bass and they seem supportive that we need to elevate that program to kind of
the last few years. We had Tim Klinger at Ray Roberts was in it, or I believe that's right. It was in it to win it. Who is the top 5 guy. And then we had Taylor Smith and Jared Miller at Hartwell this year. Both did very well. So the opportunity there. And for people who don't know this, at the Classic, for people who don't know this, if you qualify for the Classic via the College Series, the Opens, the Nation, the Team Championship, and you win it, that hasn't happened, but if you win the Classic from those qualifications, you get an invite to the Elite Series for the next season. It used to be the first event of the year was the Classic, and they would be able to join the Elites as of a month later, but they can now punch their ticket to the Elite Series by doing that. And I think that would be pretty good seed money, winning $300,000 and then fishing the next year. But there are a lot of different ways to do that.
Yeah, and there's a nation qualifier every year, and we got several, Mueller and Brandon, obviously. Brandon is, definitely the poster child for that program. So, Caleb Summerall's in there, Maddie. Am I missing anyone? I think
Iconelli's an old champion.
Iconelli was a former champ. That's a great point. You kind of lose track of him because he's like me. He's old. That was a long time.
I think he won in the 90s. I did want to point out, though, that for the guys who may be intimidated by getting into the club, right? And that's an established network. There's an at-large club in every state. That's basically designed for that angler to join the at-large. Like, Bowes, what you're talking about, New York was a little bit ahead of the curve, and they created their own at-large club before we got that to exist. But that makes you eligible for all the state tournaments, and you're not necessarily tied to a specific club other than just a generic kind of catch-all club within each state. That exists for each one. So, and
they have the state that goes to the state goes to the divisional goes to the nationals, and you obviously have to beat out somebody. What is it, the top 2 in each state? So like for Arkansas, there would be 2 qualifiers go to the nationals, or
it's top boater and co-angler.
So a lot of different ways. Kyle, do you have anything for these guys before we let them go? Because I know that it's a hard topic to discuss. I got in the weeds of it and argued with some people, but it's all out of love because we're the first people to text them and congratulate them on qualifying. They think that we don't care, but we actually care so much to argue that when they make it through the front door, we'll be the first ones to say, hey, if you need any help, we're here for you. And so, Kyle, I know that you get a lot of different feedback as well because you're in the college series. So you know some of those college anglers that are going to be making that next step. But do you have anything for these guys?
Yeah, my last question, and this is going to be a hard one to ask. This is like the worst question you could ever get asked in an interview, but I feel like this is a good opportunity for you guys to kind of explain the future of this. You know, obviously the progression of everything that we've seen with the overall and everything in that nature, you know, where do you see this in 3 to 5 years? I mean, I think that the natural reaction for most people is to overreact when something happens, but you look back 3 to 5 years from there and you're like, well, this is, you know, this is just the way it should be. So kind of explain what you see the future of the EQ being.
Oh, that's definitely a VP of tournaments big question.
Oh,
so Bowes,
boy.
take it away.
No, I think Hank and I would share this thought that, you know, we see that this is the right move to make to build a stronger league overall. You know, obviously we would hope over time that the interest in this would grow, not only from the anglers, but from the industry, that more support would be thrown behind it. And then we could really do the final step, which I believe, and Hank and I have had conversations about this earlier today, how can we make it more profitable for the anglers without putting it on them? You know, so that would be the perfect world for me, would be get traction over the next few years, you know, be known as the real AAA in the industry for the Elite Series and have kind of that money flow. And I'm not talking, you know, millions of dollars, but I'm talking about where you can, as an angler, look at it and say, I can fish it. And, you know, I don't have to win an event or finish second to make money. You know, I can fish it, you know, have those consistent top 15s and, you know, leave, you know, not rich, because hopefully I got some sponsor support that's helping me there. And again, that's
you can take them to water, but you can't make them drink. So this is a step to get them exposure to then
but
they have to act on it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that would be the next step. I think what we've settled in here as far as the format of the qualifying is the right move. I don't see that need to be changed in the future. You know, we wanted to head towards a 10% turnover on the elites, with 9 from the opens, 1 from the nation. We've hit that mark, you know, right around that mark. So that's why you saw a little pullback from the 12 to the 9. So
it should be encouraging. If you're an opens angler, it'll be discouraging because you're like, there's less spots. But if you do make it through, it's encouraging because there's less spots for you to have to lose. So that's one way of looking at it, is if I do accomplish my dream, correct, I'm not looking at my watch saying I got 11 more months, I got 10 more months, you know, I can make it.
And trust me, I've been around long enough and I have a strong enough relationship with the majority of anglers, and I love all our anglers. And I know a lot, you know, I don't know a lot of the guys that comment negatively because I just don't think they fish with us. But there are some that I definitely know.
I've checked most of them.
And you know, I feel for them, and they're my friends, and it's nothing personal. It's more of a league direction to go. So I mean, I sympathize with them, but I don't question, as Hank said. I mean, I don't question this decision, and I do have to make a lot of decisions, and there's a lot to keep me up at night. This was not one of them, exactly like Hank said.
But I think, you know, again, though, if you look at it from a ratio, the spots are lower overall, but they're higher given the group you're working with.
Right.
So
my last thing, and I'll let y'all go. I said the last one was the last one, but now that we've gotten the format on how to qualify for the Elite Series and we've gotten the new rules for the EQ out there, the next things that'll be announced is any payout changes, the schedule changes, but then the key dates is, like you talked about, Chris, you get to that November time period, December time period for signups. What is the process going to be like? Because it used to be priority if you signed up for all of them, but yet some people didn't get into certain divisions this year. Is there going to be any change, or what is the secret sauce on getting in the opens if you want to get in them when it comes to this fall and winter?
Go ahead, Hank. You just worked on that.
Go ahead, take it. I think you're going to kick that to me.
Because I'm trying to get to the front of the line, y'all. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so here's how it's going to work, and I'll give you the 30,000 foot view. We're going to compartmentalize it into 2 different sections. We're going to sign up the EQs first, which is all 9, and there will be a hierarchy of top 25 from the divisions, top 25 overall AOI, sponsor exemptions, life member, all that. It'll flow just like it has in the past, but it will be strictly for the EQs, so all 9. Once that portion is exhausted, we'll shift it over to the divisions, same hierarchy, early entry codes in order. And then after all that's done, we'll have a la carte events, and that's how that'll work. And it might, we hope it'll be early. We're hoping October time frame for that. More to come on that, but that's the overall how to come: EQ first, then divisions, then a la cartes.
So I'm not cultured like you guys are, and when I look at a menu and they say a la carte, I literally don't know what that means. Is that like you pick and choose which ones you want to do if you don't do all?
You want to sign up for the second event in division number 2.
If I want my Big Mac with no pickles, that's a la carte. I got you.
That's right.
It's not the way it comes.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Chris, you have anything on that, or did Hank cover that well?
No, I mean he did a fantastic job.
Good.
Doing really great job.
I like to see you guys handing off the reins and being nice to each other. I love that. So
we talk 100 times a day, I think. I talked to Hank. I probably talked to Hank more in the last year than I've ever talked to Tripp the whole 15, 20 years.
Well, you're basically talking
no
to Tripp when you talk to Hank. I mean, they're
that's
one
no
and the
offense
same.
to Tripp. Yeah, that's no offense to Tripp. It's just you know, we're trying. Tripp never really had to hand something off, and I kind of caught on right away, and he just kind of let me run with it. So, but Hank and I, and it's not because Hank can't do that, but it's because we got all these changes going on at the same time, and just a lot of moving parts right now, in the tournament department. So,
just
awesome. Yeah, well, we all in this 4-box know what that's about, but nobody else does, so that's totally fine. But I appreciate you guys taking the time in this, joining us for the Inside Bassmaster Podcast. This was episode 87. We talked about the Opens qualification, all the changes, and obviously the 2 head men who have either manned or are now currently manning the Opens as tournament director over the last 20 years plus of this program. So we appreciate you, Chris Bowes in the top left screen and Hank Weldon in the bottom right for joining Kyle and I on the podcast.
thanks,
and good things coming from the Opens. I loved covering them as a media perspective. I know so many journeymen who have fished them. And I can't wait to see the next crop of guys to qualify this year before this EQ takes place in 2023. So for this episode of the podcast, we will see you guys in the next one.